Welcome to this deep dive. Today we have a pretty fascinating stack of transcripts, press releases, and active real estate listings to decode.
Yeah, we're really getting into the psychology and honestly the sheer hustle of Richard Duggal.
Right. He is a globally recognized real estate phenomenon. But, to really understand his tactics, you kind of have to picture a bustling indoor market in England.
Yeah, go back to the 1970s.
Exactly, the 70s. So
Right.
a customer walks up to a stall and asks for a specific sweater. And the sweater is already sitting right there on the display table,
Right, in plain sight.
right in plain sight. But the salesperson doesn't just hand it over. Instead, they grab this long pole and they dramatically reach up to the very top display rack.
Like putting their back into it.
Yes, exaggerating the sheer physical effort of unhooking it, pulling it down for the customer. It's pure theater. And the salesperson pulling off this elaborate performance. He's 7 years old.
Which is just, it's a brilliant, intuitive grasp of human psychology from a kid. Because that 7-year-old realized something fundamental about how our brains work. We unconsciously equate friction and effort with rarity and therefore with worth.
Right, if you just hand it over, it's cheap.
Exactly. If he just hands over the sweater, it's a cheap piece of fabric. But if he, sweats to get it down from the rafters, suddenly it's a prize. And the customer bought that sweater.
And that kid grew up to treat persuasion as a literal science. So we are pulling from hours of seminar transcripts today where Duggal completely lifts the hood on his closely guarded sales secrets.
And his resume is wild. After the market stall, he graduated to selling door-to-door encyclopedias.
In small towns at age 17.
Right. He sold vacuums that cost like a month and a half's mortgage payment to people in empty houses.
Yeah?
He even sold stun guns door-to-door to office buildings, back when they were still legal.
Wow. And today, he's a RE/MAX Diamond Club and Circle of Legends award winner. He once listed 51 for sale by owner properties, FSBOs, in a single quarter.
51 and a quarter breaks the brains of most real estate professionals. It's an impossible number.
It really is. But he isn't just outworking everyone, right? Duggal is a certified Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or NLP, trainer.
Yeah, and he was actually certified by the founders of NLP themselves, so he operates on 3 distinct pillars of influence.
Right. And our goal today is to unpack these masterclasses in communication so you can apply them to your own daily life.
Exactly. So let's start with the first pillar. This is all about where he actually directs his energy.
The foundational mindset, hard work versus comfortable work.
Right. In the source material, Duggal cites this massive corporate survey looking at the 3 Ps of a sale.
Prospecting, presenting, and closing.
You got it. They asked salespeople which part of the job they actually prefer doing, and the numbers are staggering. 80% prefer presenting.
Wow, 80%.
Yeah, only 15% prefer prospecting, and a measly 5% want to actually close.
5%, that's it.
Yeah.
But Duggal looks at those numbers and builds his entire business model around them, right?
He does. He deliberately chooses to live in that uncomfortable 20%, the prospecting and the closing.
Because of what he learned back in those English markets. Go where the dirt is, that's where the money is.
Exactly. Most people avoid the dirt at all costs.
Because presenting is comfortable. I think of presenting like being a museum tour guide.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. It's fun. There's absolutely no pressure. You just walk around pointing at the features like, here's the renovated kitchen. Here's the master bath with the soaking tub.
Yeah, or it's like a car salesman just pressing the button to show you how the convertible top goes down.
Exactly. It feels like you're doing your job, you're interacting with a client, but there is zero friction.
Right, because there's no confrontation in pointing out a nice quartz countertop. The friction happens when you have to ask for the money.
Or when you have to knock on a stranger's door.
Exactly. But Duggal's philosophy is that mastering those specific uncomfortable skills is an efficiency multiplier.
It's pure profit.
It really is pure profit. If you possess the linguistic skill to get a contract signed in 20 minutes, instead of laboring through an anxious 40-minute negotiation.
You've just saved massive amounts of time.
Time and energy. And you can use that saved time to go prospect more.
And we can see this efficiency playing out in his current real estate footprint. I was looking at his active listings right now, and he has 12 properties on the market.
So he does a solid portfolio.
But the variance is what caught my eye. He has a $198,800 vacant lot up in Magnetawan, Ontario. And simultaneously, he's listing a $3.68 million luxury home down in Vaughan,
Right, showing that the methods scale flawlessly across all price points.
But I mean, there's a biological reality here. 95% of people run from prospecting and closing because the human brain is hardwired to fear rejection. So how does he bypass a literal survival instinct?
Well, he completely decouples his ego from the outcome.
Okay, how so?
Through his NLP training, he entirely removes the emotion from the equation by treating the conversation as a measurable mechanical skill.
So when someone slams a door in his face or says no,
His brain doesn't process it as a personal attack on his self-worth. He just sees data.
just data.
Yeah. He's analyzing the linguistic pattern of their no to understand exactly what psychological trigger caused it.
So he can adjust his next sentence.
Exactly. But doing the hard work in the dirt is completely useless if you are speaking the wrong language to the wrong person.
Right. Hustle doesn't matter if the message isn't landing.
Which brings us to Duggal's second pillar, sizing up the target.
You have to categorize how the person sitting across from you actually processes information.
Yeah, how they make decisions.
Yeah.
And he relies heavily on a psychological framework called the internal versus external meta program.
The sources give a great breakdown of this. So external decision makers are people who desperately need outside validation to feel secure.
The classic example Duggal uses is the iPhone.
Oh yeah. The friend who buys a brand new iPhone literally has the receipt in his hand and still calls 3 different people.
Do you think this was a good purchase?
Yes. They just completely outsource their confidence. I definitely have friends like that.
We all do. But internal decision makers are the polar opposite. They trust their gut and only their gut.
External advice actually annoys them.
It does. There's a story in the transcripts of a man who walks into a beautiful house in Naples, Florida. He takes one look at the entryway and says, "This is it. We're buying it."
Before he's even seen the kitchen or the backyard.
Exactly. No one can tell an internal decision maker what to do. They have to feel it themselves.
Which totally explains how Duggal manages to list 51 for sale-by-owner properties. FSBOs are notoriously difficult because they have already decided they hate real estate agents.
Well, the underlying mechanism with a FSBO is pure cognitive dissonance.
Right, think about it from their perspective. They have tied their ego and their financial hopes to the idea of saving that 6% commission.
They've convinced themselves they are smart enough to do it alone. So when a real estate agent shows up on their porch...
The agent's very existence feels like a direct attack on their intelligence.
Exactly. So to protect their ego, they become fiercely, stubbornly internal decision makers.
Right. If you approach them with a standard script like, "Let me show you how I can help,"
their brain immediately shuts down because you're challenging their internal reality. You're telling an internal decision maker they are wrong.
And Duggal takes this sizing up process even further. Once he knows if they are internal or external, he drops them into one of 4 distinct personality types.
Right. The driver, the amiable, the analytical, and the expressive.
And this is where the tailoring of the message happens.
Exactly. So if you sit down with a driver, their entire worldview is based on efficiency and bottom line results.
You don't ask them how their weekend was.
No, you say, "Here is the net profit you will walk away with."
But if you use that exact same blunt sentence with an amiable personality, they will kick you out of their house.
Because the amiable is entirely relationship focused. With them, you have to paint a picture. Imagine your kids playing in this backyard.
Okay, what about the analytical?
Usually the engineer type. They've studied the market stats more than you have. You speak to them in data. Let's look at the price per square foot absorption rate in your specific zip code.
And finally, the expressive. The high energy life of the party.
With them, it's all about status and excitement. This kitchen island is going to be amazing for your summer dinner parties.
But, I mean, a standard real estate agent will lose a listing because they try to give an analytical, data-heavy presentation to an amiable client.
All the time. And then the amiable client will end up going with a rookie agent who sold 0 houses last year, just because, as they'll tell their friends, we kind of liked her.
Right, but I do want to push back on this a little, though.
Sure.
Human beings are incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Does boxing a client into one of 4 rigid stereotypes actually work when you're navigating a highly emotional million-dollar transaction? It feels, I don't know, reductive.
Duggal addresses this by focusing on a concept he calls versatility. It's not about stereotyping someone as a flat caricature.
Because an engineer can still love their kids and care about the backyard.
Obviously. It's about finding the path of least resistance into their cognitive processing center. You aren't changing the facts of the market.
Right.
You're just changing the delivery mechanism. So that specific listener can actually digest the information without getting defensive.
Oh, I see. So it's like a radio frequency. You have to tune your broadcast to the exact station they're already listening to.
Precisely. Which brings us to the most fascinating part of his strategy, the actual words coming out of his mouth.
The linguistic kung fu. Duggal has a motto he repeats often. My mouth is my billboard.
Yeah, instead of spending money on bus stop ads or park benches, he spends it on mastering his scripts.
He claims to have 82 different answers for literally any objection a client can throw at him.
82. And this is where the neuro-linguistic programming really shines. NLP is essentially the study of how language affects our nervous system.
It's not just about reciting a script.
No, it's about how you physically and linguistically align with the client to create deep, unconscious trust.
The mirroring and matching techniques in the transcripts are wild. There is this story of Duggal at a listing appointment with an older Italian gentleman.
Oh, the basement stairs.
Yes. They are walking down a circular basement staircase. The client is talking animatedly, using his hands, taking these distinct, slow steps.
And Duggal is right behind him.
Right behind him, matching his pace, matching his hand gestures perfectly, but the client actually slips slightly on one of the stairs.
And Duggal, to maintain that deep physical rapport, deliberately mimics the slip on the exact same stair.
It sounds totally absurd on the surface.
It does, but the evolutionary psychology behind it is rock solid. We have mirror neurons in our brains that fire when we see someone taking an action.
Evolutionarily, we are hardwired to drop our defenses and trust people who physically and verbally resemble us.
Exactly. It signals this person is part of my tribe. They are safe.
So by mimicking the slip.
Duggal's body was unconsciously telling the client's brain, we are exactly the same.
Wow. And he goes far beyond physical mirroring, too. He uses advanced linguistic patterns, like presuppositions.
Yeah, this is brilliant. Instead of sitting down at the kitchen table and saying, the market is really good right now.
Which just sounds like a desperate sales pitch from a guy who needs to make his Porsche payment.
Right. Instead, Duggal asks this question. Are you aware of how good the market is right now?
That phrasing is a brilliantly disguised trap.
It is. By asking, are you aware, he forces the client's brain to accept the underlying premise that the market is good, regardless of how they answer.
Right. If they say yes, they agree with him.
And if they say no, he says, that's exactly why I'm calling, let me show you. It completely bypasses their critical filter.
And then there's priming, which is planting an idea that blossoms later in the conversation.
The Tony Robbins story.
Yes. While I was going through the source material, this moment actually made me laugh out loud. The Duggal is in a client's home, and he spots a Tony Robbins book on their living room shelf.
So he casually remarks, you know, Tony Robbins taught me that successful people make decisions quickly.
And he just drops it. He moves on to the kitchen. He doesn't linger on it at all.
And then hours later, when the couple tries to delay signing the contract.
Right? They say they need to think about it. They pause, look at each other, and joke, well, I guess we're successful. And they sign the paperwork.
That is master-level priming. He anchored the idea of signing today directly to their own self-identity as successful people.
To delay would mean admitting they aren't successful.
Exactly. But it's crucial to understand that this level of seamless delivery requires an obsession with practice.
Complete obsession.
Yeah.
Duggal talks about being in line at the DMV, standing there with his script book, practicing his language patterns out loud.
With full hand gesture.
Yeah. Completely ignoring the strange looks from everyone around him. He does it on the treadmill at the gym, too.
Well, he uses the analogy that NLP is like kung fu.
Right. Why kung fu?
Because it's a martial art that requires muscle memory. If someone throws a punch at you and you have to stop and think about your blocking theory...
You're going to get hit in the face.
Same with sales objections. You can't just dabble in these psychological triggers. They have to be reflexive.
Which naturally brings up the ethical elephant in the room.
It really does.
When we talk about mirroring slips on staircases, bypassing critical filters, planting psychological triggers, it starts to sound incredibly calculated.
Oh, it is.
It starts to cross the line from effective communication into what sounds like manipulation or even mind control.
Right. But Duggal draws a very distinct line between the two by looking at the desired outcome. He compares rapport versus compliance.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So, You can have a wonderfully friendly waitress at a diner who builds great rapport. She remembers your name, asks about your day, and you like her.
Sure.
But she can't necessarily close a multi-million-dollar business deal. NLP in business is about structuring a transaction so clearly that you achieve compliance. The client takes action.
Sure, but a waitress asking about my day is just being a nice human. Mimicking an old man slipping on a staircase or trapping someone with a presupposition. It feels a lot more calculated than just building rapport. It feels deceptive.
It is calculated, absolutely. But Duggal argues it isn't deceptive if the underlying transaction is genuinely mutually beneficial.
Meaning?
The goal isn't to trick someone into buying a house they hate. The goal is to remove the psychological friction that stops people from making a decision they actually want to make.
Because most people are paralyzed by the fear of making a massive financial mistake.
Exactly. These NLP tactics bypass that irrational fear, allowing the client to feel completely confident taking the action they hired you to help them take.
Okay, so it's about removing the noise so the signal can get through.
Right.
But all of this, the priming, the mirroring, the kung fu, none of it works if you don't have the foundation.
Which is his third and absolute most important pillar, who you are.
The internal state. Duggal believes firmly that there are two sales happening in every single transaction.
There's the sale you make to the client, and there's the sale you make to yourself.
Because if you don't buy what you're selling, the client's subconscious will smell it a mile away. Your body language will betray you.
And this internal swagger is how Duggal broke a 42-year sales record at the luxury real estate firm Harvey Kaus in just 3 years.
It is pure, unshakable confidence.
You really can't fake that level of confidence under pressure. There is a great moment in the transcripts from a massive 900-person seminar in Toronto.
Oh, the heckler story.
Yes. Duggal is on stage taking live, unscripted objections from his direct competitors in the audience.
And a guy stands up in the middle of this massive crowd, clearly trying to throw Duggal off his game. He yells, "Richard, I'd like to list my house with you, but I prefer to list with a lady."
It's a total curveball meant to derail the presentation.
But Duggal, without missing a single microsecond, fires back into the microphone. I understand. So what you're saying is, if I walk out of the house and walk back in wearing a dress, will you list with me?
And the entire room erupted.
I bet.
But that quick wit, that doesn't come from just being naturally funny or charismatic.
No, it comes from extreme, grueling preparation. He was doing up to 12 intensive role-play sessions every single week with other top-producing agents.
He essentially inoculated his nervous system against surprise.
So how does someone who isn't a natural-born salesperson build that level of bulletproof belief in themselves?
Duggal actually has a very practical exercise for this. He forces the agents he coaches to sit down with a blank piece of paper and write out 10 highly specific reasons why a client should hire them.
Not vague, hollow statements like "I work hard" or "I care about people."
No, empirical, undeniable facts.
For instance, pointing out that you are a full-time agent in a market where 73% of agents are only working part-time.
Exactly. Or that your average listing sells in 14 days compared to the market average of 45 days.
Because those are tangible benefits to the client.
Then he tells his agents to take that list of 10 reasons and review it for 1 solid minute while sitting in their car right before they walk up to the client's door.
He calls it emotionalizing the benefits. You have to walk in there with a swagger that radiates, "I have the absolute best option you have."
In fact, Duggal's internal belief is so strong that if a client ultimately rejects him, he doesn't feel defeated.
He genuinely, deep down in his core, believes that the client is making a huge mistake that will cost them money.
That is the ultimate internal sale. When you shift your mindset from a place of desperation like, "Please give me this job," to a place of profound value.
You are incredibly lucky to have me here.
Yes. Everything changes. Your body language, your tonality, the cadence of your speech, it all shifts automatically.
You don't have to force the linguistic kung fu because the foundation of your belief is completely solid.
Exactly.
When you stack all of this together, it creates a masterclass in human interaction. I mean, we've seen how a kid working a market stall transformed into an international real estate phenomenon.
By willingly choosing to live in the dirt of prospecting.
Right. He mastered the emotional intelligence to read a client's internal reality, adapting his message to their specific personality style.
He obsessively practiced linguistic tools to bypass natural defenses.
All anchored by an unbreakable belief in his own value.
And look, whether you are a real estate agent trying to land $1 million listing, a manager trying to motivate a reluctant team, or just someone trying to convince your friends where to go for dinner tonight.
You are always in the business of persuasion.
Always. Understanding these psychological levers removes the friction from those interactions.
And we want to leave you with a final provocative thought, building right off of Duggal's pre-meeting ritual.
Yeah, try this.
If you had to grab a pen right now and write down the top 10 empirical reasons why someone should buy into you,
Whether that's hiring you for a job, choosing you as a business partner, or even just trusting you as a friend.
what exactly would be on your list?
And perhaps more importantly, when you read that list back to yourself, do you actually believe it?
Because if you don't buy it, no one else will. You have to be willing to reach for that metaphorical long pole, pull down the sweater, and put on the show. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.